It first starts with branding and brand recognition. I have to compete with all these big, massive companies implementing processes and procedures and holding them accountable to a higher standard.
Welcome back to Cracking the Code in our special Epic 2026 speaker series, where we're spotlighting the leaders who will take the stage this February at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. Today, we're joined by Jason Walker, president of Royalty Heating and Air out of Rockland, California, one of the most innovative HVAC businesses serving communities northeast of Sacramento. In his spare time, Jason also leads HVAC Masters of the Hustle, a training organization dedicated to helping people succeed to the next level. I got a question about that too, Jason. That's pretty crazy. I mean, who's got spare time these days? So at Epic 2026, Jason will be presenting his breakout session, Differentiate or Die, How to Set Your Business Apart from the Sea of Sameness, on Friday, February 13th at 9:30 a.m. In today's conversation, you'll get a preview of what he'll share on stage, from building an unforgettable brand to becoming the employer of choice in your area. It all comes down to differentiation. So let's get cracking. So Jason, welcome to Cracking the Code. Mr. J-Dub Moneymaker is in the house.
What's up, Dave? How you doing, sir? It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And anything that I could do to any of the members out there with Contractor University or anything, I'd love to be a part of the growth. And that's really what I'm passionate about.
Man, I appreciate that. And I literally had to stand through your Epic 2025 breakout session where you talked about selling to the younger generation homeowners. That place was packed. You did a great job, man. We're glad to have you back again.
Thank you. I mean, it's always kind of nerve-wracking, before you present in breakouts, because you don't know who's going to show up. There's multiple other great speakers and presenters. And, to be able to have a packed room where everyone was not just sitting but standing also is an absolute honor, and absolutely says that I got to be doing something right? It's that reassurance.
That's exactly right. So speaking of what you're going to be talking about this time and standing, how do people differentiate their HVAC business to help them stand out from the crowd?
Great question, Dave. It first starts with branding and brand recognition. With Royalty Heating and Air, we've only been in business for upcoming a year and a half when the event starts. And so what we had to do in Sacramento, we have a massive market of HVAC. I mean, there's multiple companies doing over 100 million. There's multiple companies doing over 50 million. The small companies, I mean, they're just everywhere as well. So what do you have to do when you're doing a startup company, right? I have to compete with all these big, massive companies. And so right when I started, I said, we have to make sure that we have a great brand, a logo, and we understand what our core beliefs are, right? Our mission statement, our core values. All of those go into building really the pillars and the foundation and the Bible of what your company is and what separates you from everybody else in your market.
So true. So you work with contractors all over the country. I mean, I've been following you, and you've been all over the place, and that's really cool to see. So why do you think some contractors struggle to break even while others enjoy double-digit net profits year after year?
What I find is it's really the people, right? Implementing processes and procedures and holding them accountable to a higher standards. I think that's what really separates the elite contractors that I go out, rather than the companies that are just, not making money and just working, or just hitting the bottom line, right? And then also understanding your numbers, your KPIs, your numbers, your net profit, your gross profit, what your overhead is, and really dialing in those numbers so you're actually going to be keeping your doors open, right? A lot of, I feel like smaller mom and pop shops, they just like to satisfy the homeowner based off the price, right? And there's so much more that you could do by delivering higher value, which you don't have to drop your price and you don't have to close your doors.
Yeah. Funny thing is, pricing, everybody always talks about how, I got to be competitive with what's going on in the market. And I'm like, well, do they know anything about what it costs you to run your business? Your competitors, do they know? It's like, why do you care what they're charging? Develop a process and your employees to where you're delivering above and beyond, where you're delivering a premium product, and then you can earn a premium price, right?
100%. I mean, you nailed it right there. When you go out there and you deliver exceptional value and service, and that's what I always say is I tell companies when I go on site, what is those magical moments within your technician going out there and doing a service or a diag, right? What are those magical moments within your company or that connection with that client? You got to ask yourself those questions because there's a reason why Disney is so successful, right? Is because they have magical moments. There's a reason why Universal Studios is successful is because they have magical moments. So you got to ask yourself, what is that engagement experience like with the client between every department also? And when I travel and train, what I find is there's departments and there's division. Okay. You should never divide your departments or division, and you should always be passing the baton off and act like the baton is the customer's experience, right? Sometimes you overextend promises or underextend delivery and you drop the baton and you could lose the race. So I always look at things like that as well as hyper focused on relationship before business.
So true. Because, one thing, well, let me back up. I was running my dad's business back in the 90s. And, people say, well, you used to buy Yellow Page ads, man. We got this thing called a website, right? And I didn't have a website, not in the 90s. So one thing that hasn't changed, even since my granddad started his business back in 1956, is it's still a people business, right? And you just mentioned the idea of customer experience. So what are some great examples of customer experiences that you've seen and or employee engagement approaches that you've seen on your travels without necessarily outing any particular contractors' names, but just, what are some great examples you've seen?
Absolutely. Great question. One of the examples that we actually now implement here at Royalty is when you go to a HVAC company or a trades company, right? They get out of the car. Usually they grab their ladder, their tools. And what happens is that experience starts with work. Okay. What we've adapted here at Royalty is the experience starts from the door knock introduction. Well, it starts from the phone call, but when our technician goes out there, they don't go out there with their tools immediately. Okay. Because what we want to do is we got to understand that we're strangers walking into their house usually. And 70% of the time I say we meet with the woman of the home, 30% of the time the kids are there. So what I want to do is I want to involve them with these magical moments. And when I start, I teach my technicians to get to the table. So we could go through our comfort survey, but while we're going and dialing our comfort survey, we also created a coloring book. And so what our coloring book is, it talks about King Air, who's our mascot, and it talks about what right now we're in heating tune-up. It talks about what the process of our heating tune-up is. It talks about one of the coloring pages being our tools that we use with King Air right there. One page talks about dirt dragons, right? And there's a picture of a dirty filter with dust dragons coming out of it. And then what we do is we make it fun for the kids as well. And we hold a coloring contest every single month with every service call, diagnostic, and install. And any of those coloring that we get that when our technicians on site, they bring back, and once a month we do a raffle, or not a raffle, but we choose which one's the best. And then that child or that family gets $100. So it's that just being different experience, right?
As well. And it was a great way to get those kids engaged and quiet. while you're trying to talk to their mom. That's awesome, man.
To kind of just piggyback off of that too, I was really impressed because you say, how do you stand out, right? So we actually did a home show about 2 months ago with Royalty, and every home show I've done, I've always catered to the adults. Okay. This home show, I wanted to cater to the kids, and I said, how do we get kids inside of our booth? But then when we get them inside of our booth, how do we keep them there? Because if we could keep the kids there, the parents are going to follow. So what I did was I didn't hook up a HVAC system as a sample. I didn't hook up our testimonial videos. What I did was I hired a professional face painter and a balloon maker, a balloon animal maker.
Nice.
And I promise you, we had a line of 30 kids waiting to get their face painted. We had a coloring contest section where they were coloring, and then we had a balloon section. Each face painter or kid, right, sat down for 5 minutes. So that means me and my team have 5 minutes to do our elevator pitch, to inform and educate who we are, the impact we want to make, and then see hopefully that we're the right fit for them, for their family, to bring comfort back to their kingdom, right? So I think 2026, my marketing plan is going to be targeting more towards the kids when I do like my billboards and radio ads and things like that.
You know, that's a great idea. And if you think about it, as a parent, we do things for our kids long before we ever do them for ourselves. So what do you think about, you know, how does a awesome customer experience, kid experience, and employee experience translate into massive success?
I mean, it just dials in the full circle, right? So when you're a business owner, what you're hoping is the full customer service at the end. You get a Google review, you get a testimonial, and then you get a referral, right? So if you could dial in those three things for the customer experience, I think you're doing pretty well. One thing that we really strive at Royalty is only being in business for less than a year and a half. Our Google business account didn't get approved, and I'm really excited about this. And Google got approved February 28th of 2025. So roughly about 7 months ago. And if you look at our Google reviews, we hyper focus on that white glove customer experience magic moments. And we have 5 stars with over 270 reviews in 7 months. So we got to be doing something right, right? And it's being able to have the opportunity to go to companies like you were saying and dialing in what I'm seeing is working and what's not working, and really delivering a great culture. Because as I travel and I train, right, I had to let go. And a lot of times I feel like business owners, it's hard to let go, especially a startup company. I had no choice but to hire the right people. So when I'm traveling and training, they know what my standards and processes and procedures are.
Absolutely right. So knowing what you know now, this is a trick question since it's not that long ago. What would you have done differently starting Royalty?
Oh, great question. For the first summer, last summer, I subbed all my installs out because I started June 1st is the first month that we started operation. Everyone was already at their home base. So by subbing installs out, you don't get the right quality of the standards that you want. When you pay the installers, they already have their foot in another company. So if there's a red tag or anything, for them to come back to do it after you paid them is really hard. So once the season of summer was over, rolling into 2025, we were able to hire a couple solid installers that, had really, really good skills. But when we look at installs, I want to be different. You talk about being different than your market of the sea of sameness, right? Well, right. When you look at marketing and trucks and truck wraps, my installs, I want to look at a piece of art as well. So when you look at Royalty, if we have a closet unit, we're bubble wrapping the whole entire closet inside. We're making sure that when we're doing our gas lines and we're taping and we're doing our mud and everything, We use tape and we tape the lines and rip it off. So everything, even on the gas pipe, is all nice and straight when you see the blue. Also, we 3D print. This is something that we in-house. It doesn't matter what manufacturer it is. What we do is we 3D print our royalty clips to fit any manufacturer. So we kind of, in our own sense, private label the systems. On top of that, what I think is something that I found from a gentleman I did an on-site with in Mississippi, which stood out to me, was he did LED lights on all of his installs. So we wrap our catwalks with LED lights in attics, our closets, our garages, and it's just to be different, because if you have 10 contractors and you're looking at all their installs, and they might be amazing installs, right? But what's going to separate you? I guarantee you my logo on the system with lights and bubble wrap and everything is really going to pop compared to everyone else.
Yeah, it's no doubt about that, man. And that's one of the things I love about you. You think way outside the box, man. And that's good stuff. Give us one big zinger, things people can look for coming to your session at Epic.
One thing that I know I'm going to deliver is high energy. And first off and foremost, I am a trainer that is extremely passionate about what I do. And I know for a fact, okay, talking to you out there that's struggling right now, paying your last cents or credit card maxing it out to go to the event. I understand what it feels like to be that individual in the seat, strapped, stressed, and not knowing what to do. And I promise you guys and girls, if you attend my breakout session, I will leave you not just amped up and motivated, but the tools to separate you from everyone else in your market so you guys could pop and be the number one company. Because I'll leave you with this. If you want to dominate your market, what do you have to do? You have to dominate one neighborhood at a time. And that's what you have to hyper focus on. Isn't the end result, but the now result.
That was awesome. So thanks, J-Dub. I look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas.
Thank you. I'm excited. Take care, y'all. I'm super stoked to see you all in the breakout.
So guys, if you ever struggled to stand out from the crowd and create a culture that leads to a very successful future, Jason Walker can help you get there. To hear Jason go even deeper, make sure you join us at Epic 2026, February 12th and 13th at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, where he'll present Differentiate or Die, how to set your business apart from the sea of sameness, on Friday, February 13th at 9:30 a.m. You can learn more and register now at epic2026.com. I'm David Holt, and this has been Cracking the Code, brought to you by EGIA Contractor University, where we help you run a more profitable, more sustainable, and less stressful contracting business. Until next time, keep on cracking.